Madeline Jameson was elbow-deep in dishwater at the back of Penny's diner when a man in a suit that cost more than her yearly rent walked in and ruined her night. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and smooth like he'd never had to raise it to be heard in his life. "Is there a manager available?" Madeline glanced over her shoulder, saw the man standing like he owned the place, tall, sharp-jawed, dark-haired, just messy enough to look deliberate, and immediately rolled her eyes. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped out from behind the counter. "You're looking at her," she said flatly. "But if this is about the pie, we're out. And if it's about the coffee, it's always burnt after 7. He blinked. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you. I'm looking to invest in the neighborhood, and I've been told you're influential around here." She raised an eyebrow. "Influential?" She glanced around the empty booths, the cracked vinyl seats, the flickering neon sign outside. "Buddy, I run a diner that only gets full when the town fair runs out of corn dogs." His lips twitched. "Still, I'd like to talk. May I sit?" She folded her arms. "You can sit. Doesn't mean I'll listen." He did sit, perfectly composed, like he'd never been told no in his life.
"I'm Thayer Ashford.
My company is opening a co-working space and boutique hotel down the block. We're hoping to partner with local businesses." "Which means," she cut in, "you want to buy us out, slap a minimalist logo on the front, and charge $20 for pancakes." He looked genuinely amused.
No.
"I want to keep the neighborhood's charm. You're part of that." Madeline narrowed her eyes. "I don't trust rich men. Especially ones who talk like they care about charm." There it was. The truth. Her dad had been rich. Well, he had been until he emptied her mom's bank account and vanished with a younger woman and a vintage Porsche. Ever since, she'd lumped all rich men into one category: manipulative, arrogant, and only interested in what they could buy. Thayer just nodded slowly, like he heard more in her words than she said aloud. "Fair enough," he said. "Then let me prove I'm not like that."
She scoffed.
"You think one dinner's gonna change my mind?" "Maybe not," he said casually. "But if you come with me Friday night, I'll donate $10,000 to the community kitchen you're always fundraising for." Her jaw dropped. "How did you?" "I do my homework," he said.
"So,
"Dinner?" She should have said no. She wanted to say no, but the food pantry's roof leaked and the school had cut aftercare funding again. And $10,000? That could change lives. Madeline sighed.
"Fine."
"But I'm not dressing up." Friday came faster than she expected, and Madeline regretted everything the second she stepped outside and saw the jet black car waiting for her. Not a regular car. A sleek, low, luxury nightmare with a silent driver in a suit. She wore jeans, boots, and a plain sweater. Thayer stepped out wearing a tailored navy coat over a dark button-down and slacks, his hair slicked back slightly from the breeze. He didn't even blink at her outfit. "You look great," he said, opening the door for her. She slid in without a word. "If you try to talk me into selling the diner, I'm walking back." "Understood," he said lightly. They ended up at a rooftop restaurant with glass walls, glowing candlelight, and a view of the city that made her breath catch. A string quartet played in the corner. The air smelled like truffle oil and money. Madeline sat stiffly, scanning the menu. These prices don't even list dollars. Just numbers. Thayer laughed. "Would it help if I ordered for us?" "No," she said, grabbing the menu tighter. "I'm not some lost puppy." He smiled at her then, not a smug smile, not a patronizing one, just a real, warm curve of his mouth that made something flutter annoyingly in her chest. "Tell me about you, Madeline." And for some reason she did. She told him about growing up in the neighborhood, how she took over the diner after her mom passed, how she ran the soup nights and organized toy drives every holiday. She didn't mean to open up. But he listened. Really listened. No fake nods, no checking his watch. Just his eyes locked on hers like every word mattered. When dessert came some ridiculous gold-dusted chocolate thing, he pushed it toward her. I don't like sweets, she said. You haven't tried this one. She rolled her eyes, but took a bite anyway.
Damn it.
It was incredible. Thayer leaned back, watching her reaction. Told you. You're annoying, she said, but there was no heat in it. And when he walked her to her door later, hands stuffed in his coat pockets, he didn't try to kiss her. Just looked at her like he wanted to, but would not until she wanted it too. Thanks for the evening, he said. She nodded, heart doing something weird. Don't forget the 10,000. It's already wired, he said easily. Good night, Madeline. She told herself it was a one-time thing, that she'd only agreed because of the donation. But Thayer kept showing up. He brought coffee to the diner one morning, real coffee, not the burnt motor oil her machine made. Thought you could use something decent, he said. He fixed the sign when it flickered out again. Paid someone local to do it, too. He stopped by and helped serve soup one night without telling anyone who he was, just rolled up his sleeves and passed out bowls like any other volunteer. And damn it, she started to like him. A lot. But every time she let herself smile a little too long, every time her fingers brushed his when he passed her something, she reminded herself, he's rich. He's temporary. He'll leave. Like they always do. Then came the night she found out just how rich. She was cleaning up the diner when she absent-mindedly Googled him. She expected investment firm or startup guy. What she didn't expect was founder of Ashford Ventures, net worth over 80 million, Forbes 30 under 30 alum. She dropped her phone. 80 million? She didn't sleep that night. Didn't answer when he called the next morning. Just stared at the wall, furious at herself. She was falling for a millionaire. The exact kind of man she swore she'd never trust again. When he showed up at the diner that evening, she barely looked at him. You lied, she said quietly.
I didn't, he said.
You never asked how much. She stared at him, heart pounding. You knew I hated rich men. I knew you had reasons, he said. And I didn't want to be another one of them. She folded her arms. So you hid it? No, he said. I just hoped you'd see me before you saw the number. Silence stretched between them. Then, I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Thayer stepped closer, voice calm. Then don't decide tonight. Just
come with me.
One more time. She looked up at him. Where? His gaze held hers. Somewhere honest. And somehow she said yes. The air was colder than it had any right to be for spring, but Madeline didn't say a word as she stepped into the waiting car beside Thayer. He didn't offer an explanation, and she didn't ask for one. They drove in silence, the tension between them thick enough to press against her ribs. The last time they'd been in this car, she'd been wary. Now, she was angry with him, with herself, with the billion-dollar twist she hadn't seen coming. The car pulled up to a gate she didn't recognize, nestled between rows of tall, unassuming trees. No brand signage.
No dorman.
Just a key code and a quiet driver who didn't even glance back as the gates opened. Where are we? She asked finally. Outside the city, he said. This used to be my grandmother's estate. I've kept it up. Thought it might be the only place quiet enough for what I need to say. They stepped out onto gravel, the crunch under her boots the only sound for a long stretch. The house was old stone and wood, surrounded by a garden that hadn't been trimmed into submission. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't designed for show. It felt lived in.
Loved.
She followed him inside, past wide wooden doors into a hallway lined with framed photographs.
No magazine ves.
Just family smiling faces, summer trips, birthdays. There was even a faded one of a little boy, front teeth missing, holding a fishing rod twice his height. Thayer caught her eye. That was the last time I visited her before she passed. She taught me how to gut a fish that day. You fish? She asked, surprised despite herself. I used to, before life got loud. He led her through to a room with tall windows and worn leather chairs. A fire crackled in the corner, casting gold across the hardwood floors. He gestured for her to sit, but she stayed standing. "I didn't bring you here to change your mind," he said. "I brought you here because you deserve the truth. And I got tired of being someone I'm not just to fit what you thought I was." Her jaw tightened. "I never asked you to lie." "You didn't," he said quietly. "But you never gave me the space to be honest either." She looked away, her fingers curling around the edge of the chair. "You're right," he continued, stepping closer but not touching her.
I'm wealthy.
Not just comfortable wealthy, in a way that most people don't understand. And I didn't earn it all myself. My grandfather started the company. My father nearly lost it. I rebuilt it. Her eyes flicked back to his. "So, you're saying I should feel sorry for you?" "No," he said, his voice low. "I'm saying I know exactly what it means to lose something you thought would last forever. I know what it's like to have people look at you and only see numbers. And I know that when I walk into a room, people don't tell me the truth anymore because they're too busy calculating what I'm worth." She swallowed. "Then why me?" "Because you looked me in the eye and told me no. Because you didn't care who I was. Because you were real." She turned from him, pacing toward the window. Outside, the moonlight traced silver along the garden path. "I'm not sure I know how to be with someone who lives in your world." "Then don't be with someone from my world," he said. "Be with me." Her breath caught. He stepped toward her, carefully. "I don't want to pull you into something that makes you feel small. I want to build something that makes you feel seen." She turned, slowly. "You don't get it, Thayer. I've spent my whole life watching money hurt people. My mom worked 2 jobs after my dad left. I watched her fold herself into pieces just to keep the lights on. Every time a rich man promised something, it came with a broken end." He didn't flinch. "Then let me be different." "And what happens when this stops being fun for you? When the diner's not charming anymore, and I'm just the girl who can't keep up with your world?" His expression didn't change, but his voice dropped. "I don't want charm, Madeline. I want something that doesn't vanish when the spotlight fades." She stared at him, chest tight. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, not a ring, not a check. He handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly. It was a signed transfer, a gift of $20,000 to the community center's literacy program.
No strings.
Already filed. "I didn't ask you to, you didn't. But I listened. And I wanted to help. Not to impress you. Not to win you. Just because it mattered to you." She stared at the paper, her throat thick. "I also signed over the development rights to the old bakery lot," he added. "You were right. The neighborhood doesn't need another hotel. It needs to keep what makes it home. So we're putting up a co-op kitchen there. Local run. You'll have full oversight." She blinked. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want to prove I'm not who you're afraid I am." She didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw past the suits and the cars and the tailored charm. She saw the man who showed up to serve soup without telling anyone who he was. The man who fixed a diner sign when no one asked. The man who brought real coffee not to impress her, but because he noticed she never had time to leave the counter. And she saw herself standing on a cliff's edge, terrified not of the fall, but of the possibility that this time, the landing might not hurt. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Then let's figure it out together," he said.
No spotlights. No headlines.
"Just you and me." She stepped forward. Just one step. But it felt like a mile. His hand reached out, not grabbing, not pulling, just offering, and she placed hers in his. The warmth of it was steady. Real. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, quiet and constant. Inside, she let herself breathe. He didn't kiss her. Not yet. He just stood there, holding her hand like it was the only truth he had left to offer. And for the first time, Madeline didn't pull away. The next few weeks moved like a current. Madeline didn't try to fight anymore. She wasn't sure when exactly she stopped bracing for impact, but somewhere between watching Thayer argue with a city zoning board on behalf of the co-op kitchen and seeing him patiently teach Mrs. Castillo's grandson how to fix a broken vending machine, she realized he wasn't trying to dazzle her anymore. He was just showing up. And so was she. She didn't dress up. She didn't pretend to be anything but who she was. And he never asked her to. One Thursday afternoon, Thayer picked her up outside the diner, his sleeves rolled up and sunglasses pushed on top of his head. He didn't say where they were going, just handed her a sandwich wrapped in butcher paper and asked, "You trust me yet?" She eyed him. "That depends. Am I about to end up on a yacht with a saxophone player and a 5-course meal again?" He laughed, but there was something softer underneath it. "No yachts today." They drove out past the edge of town, where cracked roads gave way to gravel and the scent of pine replaced exhaust. Eventually, he pulled over near a clearing she didn't recognize. Wildflowers covered the slope in bursts of yellow and violet, and a small wooden structure sat nestled between 2 tall trees. It looked like it hadn't been touched in a decade. Madeline stepped out of the car slowly. "What is this?" "My mom's old artist retreat," he said, walking ahead. "She used to bring me here when I was a kid. I haven't been back since I was a teenager." Madeline followed him up the path. Inside, the space was dusty, but full of life. Paintings leaned against the walls, half-finished. A rusted kettle still sat on the stove. A canvas with nothing but brushstrokes of red and gold rested in the corner. "My mom was the one who taught me how to listen before I speak," Thayer said, brushing dust off a window ledge. "She used to say that money can buy you silence, but it can't buy you stillness. That you have to earn that." Madeline looked around, the quiet pressing in. "Why bring me here?" He turned, his gaze steady. "Because I needed you to see where I come from. The real part. Not the penthouse. Not the dinners. This." She stepped closer to one of the paintings, a burst of color spiraling out from a dark center. She was good. She was brilliant, he said quietly. But she never wanted the spotlight. She just wanted to create. Madeline nodded slowly. "I think I would have liked her." "You would have," he said. She hated shallow people. She would have loved how you never flinch when someone tries to impress you. They sat for a while in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Eventually, Madeline looked at him. "You know this doesn't make it easier." "I know," he said. "I still don't know where we're going. I still don't know if I fit." "You think I have it all figured out?" His voice was calm, but something flickered under it. "I've spent years building something I thought would make me feel safe. Turns out, it just made me more isolated. You're the first person who's made me feel like I can breathe without performing." Madeline looked down at her hands. "You ever think maybe we're just too different?" He stood, walked to the window, and pushed it open. The breeze swept in, carrying the scent of moss and sunlight. "Maybe," he said, "but difference doesn't scare me. You do." She frowned. "What?" "You scare me, Madeline. Because you see through everything. Because you make me want to be better without even asking me to. Because you could break me, and I'd probably thank you for it." She stared at him, stunned. That's a terrible pitch for staying together. He turned, a wry smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "I'm not pitching. I'm just telling the truth." And she believed him. That night, he drove her home without saying much. But when he walked her to her door, he paused. "I'm flying to Berlin next week," he said. "There's a conference I can't skip. I'll be gone 5 days." Madeline nodded. "Okay. I want you to come." She blinked. "What?" "I'll cover your shifts. I already talked to Penny. I'll fly you back early if you hate it, but I want you there. Not as arm candy. Not as a photo op. Just as you." She hesitated. "It's not a vacation, is it?" "No." But I want you to see what my life really looks like. The parts that aren't curated. Madeline folded her arms. You sure you want me there? I might tell some investor your hotel coffee tastes like mop water. He grinned. I'm counting on it. She didn't answer right away. But the next morning, she handed him her passport. Berlin was overwhelming in every way. The hotel suite had a chandelier in the bathroom. The conference center was glass and chrome, filled with people in tailored suits, speaking 5 languages at once. Madeline wore a blazer she borrowed from Penny and boots she'd polished twice before packing. But Thayer never left her side. He introduced her not as a date, not as someone special, but as Madeline Jameson, who runs the most important business in her town. And when she laughed at that, he just looked at her like it wasn't a joke. At one point, a woman in a silk blouse and diamond earrings leaned in and said, "You're quite the surprise." Madeline raised an eyebrow. That's supposed to be a compliment? The woman blinked, then smiled slowly.
Yes.
He's been different since you showed up. Later that night, after a long dinner and too much wine, Thayer led her to the rooftop of the hotel. The city lights stretched out like a galaxy beneath them. I know this isn't your world, he said, but I want to build one that is. She stared out at the skyline. What does that even mean? It means I don't want a life that doesn't have you in it. Madeline turned slowly. Thayer. No pressure, he said quickly. I'm not trying to trap you in some fantasy. I just need you to know this isn't temporary for me. She looked up at him, eyes sharp. You're not just saying that because I helped you win over a German venture capitalist who liked my boots? He laughed. That didn't hurt. Madeline shook her head. You're still too smooth. I'm terrified, if that helps. She stepped closer. Good. Me too. He reached for her hand, and she let him take it.
Stay, he said.
Just a little longer. So she stayed. They flew back together, slept most of the way, her head on his shoulder, his hand resting gently over hers. Back home, everything looked smaller, but it didn't feel less important. Thayer didn't pull back. He didn't distance himself now that the trip was over. If anything, he was around more. He attended a PDA fundraiser with her. He helped paint the youth center's new mural. He even fixed the leaky faucet in the diner's kitchen without being asked. Then one evening, he showed up at her door looking nervous for the first time. He wasn't in a suit, just jeans and a dark sweater, hair tousled from the wind. I need you to come with me, he said. She frowned. Where? You'll see. The car ride was quiet, not tense, just filled with something waiting. When they pulled up to a long stretch of land near the river, she recognized it immediately. It was the old train depot, abandoned for years. What are we doing here? He stepped out and held out his hand. She followed him to a small clearing where a set of blueprints were pinned to a wooden board. I bought the lot, he said. Her eyes widened. Why? Because I want to build something that brings our worlds together. A community marketplace. Local vendors. Artists. Food from the diner. Space for workshops. Music nights. You name it. Madeline stared at him. You're serious. Completely. I want you to help design it. Run it. Make it yours. Her heart thudded. There. He turned to her, reaching into his coat. And then he pulled out a ring. Real. Simple. Beautiful. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to let me love you exactly as you are. Will you marry me? Madeline didn't move. Then slowly, she reached out, took the ring from his palm, and slid it on. Yes, she whispered. But if you ever turn this into a chain of luxury markets, I will burn it down. He grinned, eyes shining. Deal. And then finally he kissed her. Honest.
Certain. No spotlight.
No performance. Just them. Spring melted into early summer, and for the first time in years, Madeline didn't feel like she was bracing for the next storm. Not emotionally. Not financially. not even metaphorically. The diner still opened at 6, the coffee still tasted like desperation by afternoon, and the grill still sputtered every third Sunday, but now, it felt like she was building something instead of just holding everything together. And Thayer, her fiancé, wasn't just hovering on the edges of her life anymore.
He was in it.
Living it. Not reshaping it to suit him, not throwing money at her problems and calling it love, but showing up every single day, in ways she hadn't known how to ask for before him. She watched him haul crates of tile samples into what would soon be the community marketplace, now officially named the rail yard, without complaint, even though the summer sun had turned his shirt nearly transparent. He didn't flinch when a vendor snapped about spacing or when the city inspector delayed permits again. He just rolled up his sleeves and solved things. But it wasn't just what he did. It was how he looked at her when she spoke. Like she was the beginning and end of every plan he made, even the ones that didn't need her approval. She stood beneath the half-constructed archway of the main entrance, arms crossed, watching him talk with a group of local artists about installing a rotating mural wall. When he caught her eye, he didn't wave or call out. He just smiled soft and open, and she felt it land in her chest like a truth she didn't have to run from anymore. Later, after the group had dispersed and the sun dipped low enough to cast long shadows across the gravel, he walked over and handed her a bottle of water, without a word. "You always bring me these," she said, uncapping it. "I've learned hydration is the key to surviving your planning meetings," he said. "Also, I like watching you take over a room." She leaned against the wooden frame beside her. "You're not bad yourself. Though I did overhear you use the word synergize earlier. I almost took your ring back." He laughed under his breath. "Guilty. I'll make it up to you. Dinner tonight." She raised an eyebrow. "Real food or another one of your reimagined tapas places where they charge $20 for a spoonful of foam?" "I was thinking something low-key," he said. "Somewhere you don't have to translate the menu." She gave a mock sigh of relief.
Fine.
"But I'm choosing the wine."
Deal.
"But you're driving." "I have a call with Tokyo in the morning." She tilted her head. "You didn't mention that." "I didn't want to think about it yet." He breathed out slowly. "I've been turning down travel. Postponing meetings. I know I can't do that forever, but I don't want us to start this next chapter long distance." Madeline stiffened, just slightly. "You're not thinking of stepping back from your company?" "No," he said. "But I am thinking of restructuring things. I've been grooming someone to take over stateside operations. I want to base myself here. At least for a while." Her brows pulled together. "That's a huge shift." "I know. But I've spent years building a company that runs, because of me. Now I want to build a life that runs with you." She didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, "You're not doing this because of guilt or pressure, right?" His voice was steady. "I'm doing it because I want to wake up in the same place as you. Because I want to be there when the diner hits its first break-even month. Because I don't want to just love you, I want to live beside you." Her throat went tight. "I'm not used to being anyone's priority," she said quietly. "You are mine," he replied, without conditions. The next morning, she found a note tucked into the back pocket of her jeans. It just said, "You're the best decision I never saw coming." By the time the grand opening of the rail yard rolled around, the entire town had rallied around it like it had existed for decades. Booths lined the interior, filled with handmade goods, food carts, and local musicians. Kids ran through the space chasing bubbles, and someone had brought a rescue dog that promptly became the unofficial mascot. Madeline stood near the main arch, watching a group of high school students set up folding chairs for the ribbon cutting. She wore a blue sundress that had been hiding in her closet for years, saved for a someday that never came until now. Thayer found her without looking, weaving through the crowd in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks. "No tie."
No flas.
Just him. He stopped in front of her, hands in his pockets. "You look like the reason this place matters," he said. She glanced around. "I look like I've been yelling about signage for 6 hours."
He grinned.
That too. They cut the ribbon together. Cameras flashed, kids cheered, and someone let off a confetti cannon that startled half the guests and made Thayer laugh so hard he nearly dropped the scissors. As the sun began to set, casting gold across the open courtyard, Thayer pulled her aside, away from the crowd. "I've got something for you," he said. She narrowed her eyes. "If it's another building, I swear," he held up a hand. "Just a key." She blinked. "A key?" "To a second apartment I bought on Main Street. It's small. 2 bedrooms. Hardwood floors. Exposed brick. I figured it could be our place while we figure out what kind of home we want long-term." Madeline stared at him. "You bought us an apartment?" "I bought us a place that isn't 5 blocks from a constantly beeping fryer," he said. "You don't have to move in tomorrow. Or even next week. But it's there. When you're ready."
She took the key slowly.
It was simple.
Brass. No engraving.
Just a tiny promise waiting to be used. "I never thought I'd be the kind of person who ends up with someone like you," she said, voice low. "I never thought I'd find someone who made me want to stop chasing the next big thing," he replied. "But here we are." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "I'm in this, Thayer. All the way. No backup plan." His hand slid into hers, grounding. "Then let's build something impossible together." They didn't throw a massive engagement party. No press releases. No designer gowns or rooftop announcements. Instead, a week later, they hosted a small dinner in the back of the diner, just family, close friends, and the team that had helped build the rail yard. Penny brought her famous peach cobbler. Mrs. Castillo made tamales. Thayer's assistant nearly cried when Madeline handed her a hand-stitched apron embroidered with the rail yard's logo. There were no speeches. Just laughter and warmth and the kind of comfort that came from knowing everyone in the room had helped build something that mattered. At the end of the night, Thayer called Madeline outside, where the sky was clear and the stars were bright enough to see without a telescope. "You know what I realized this week?" he asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "What?" "That the best thing I've ever built doesn't have a price tag. It has your voice, your stubbornness, your heart." She leaned in, forehead against his. "You are worth the risk. And you are worth the fall." They kissed beneath the stars, no cameras, no crowd, just the two of them, finally still. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She leaned into the man who had opened his world, not to impress her, but to share it. The man who had built something real with her, not around her. The man she once thought she'd never trust. The man she would choose again, every single day. The early summer air was thick with honeysuckle and possibility, the kind of night that clung to your skin and whispered that change was coming, but not the kind to be feared. The rail yard had been open for nearly a month, and it was thriving. The marketplace had become the heart of the town in a way no one had predicted, not even Thayer. Kids painted on the mural wall every weekend, food trucks rotated through the courtyard, and the local newspaper had run a full-page feature titled, "The Miracle on Main Street." Madeline sat on the back steps of the new apartment, barefoot, a glass of red wine resting beside her on the top step. The place was still mostly empty. A mattress on the floor. A table they'd assembled together with mismatched chairs. No curtains yet, but it was theirs. Thayer emerged from inside, sleeves pushed up, carrying a small cardboard box with a triumphant look. "Found it," he said, setting it beside her. "The last of your books. Hidden behind a stack of my old conference folders. I think we can officially call the great move complete." She looked inside the box and grinned. "I've been looking for this copy of East of Eden for a month." He sat beside her, stretching his legs out. "You labeled it kitchen, by the way." "I was tired. Or sneaky." She leaned her shoulder against his. "Honestly, it still doesn't feel real. Like any moment, I'm going to wake up and find myself elbow deep in dishwater with the morning rush banging on the door." "You still are," he said. Except now there's a key on your ring and a view with stars. She glanced down at the engagement ring on her finger. It caught the porch light with a quiet gleam, not gaudy, not oversized, just right. He looked over at her, expression soft. You good? I'm better than good. I think I'm finally.
Still.
He reached for her hand and laced their fingers together. Tomorrow, I have to fly to San Francisco for 48 hours. Just a board meeting, nothing major. She didn't flinch. You sure you don't want me to come? I'd love for you to, he said. But you've got the vendor meeting and the school fundraiser. I don't want you to miss those. And honestly, I kind of like that we've got our own orbits now. Intersecting, but not dependent. She nodded. I used to think love meant losing yourself in someone. That one day you'd wake up and not recognize what belonged to you anymore.
But this.
It feels like I've found more of myself, not less. He leaned in and kissed her temple. You'll still be here when I get back? I'll be here, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. And I'll probably have painted another wall without asking. I've accepted that as an inevitable part of our life. She smiled into the night, and something inside her, something that used to feel like a coiled wire, finally let go. The next morning, she watched him leave. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering doubts. Just a kiss at the door and a quiet promise to bring back her favorite tea from the boutique shop near his San Francisco office. While he was gone, Madeline threw herself into the fundraiser. It was for the after-school music program, and she'd promised to help coordinate the silent auction. Between managing last-minute vendor updates and chasing down a musician who insisted on bringing live goats for his performance art piece, she barely had time to think about anything else. But every night, she got a message. Not a text, a handwritten note tucked into the spine of a book he'd left behind, or scribbled on the back of a diner receipt he'd hidden in the flower bin, or folded into her sock drawer. They were small, ridiculous things. I miss the way you stir pasta, like it owes you money. You talk in your sleep. You said zoning permit last night. It was deeply romantic. I bought the tea. They were out of your favorite, so I bought all 3 alternatives. One of them has rose petals. I don't know who either of us is anymore. When he returned, Madeline was waiting at the gate. Not because she was anxious. Because she wanted to see his face the second he stepped back into their world. He spotted her before she saw him. She knew, because his expression changed first. The way his shoulders relaxed. The way his eyes swept across the crowd and landed on her without hesitation. You came, he said as he reached her. I always will. He didn't say anything else. Just pulled her close, kissed her like she was home, and held her for a long minute in the middle of the arrivals terminal. Later that evening, they went to a small restaurant tucked behind the church, one that had opened inside a converted greenhouse. It smelled like basil and wood smoke, and the lights were strung between the rafters like stars caught in a net. Halfway through dinner, Madeline set down her fork and looked across the table. I've been thinking, she said. Dangerous words. She ignored that. We should set a date. Thayer froze. For the wedding? No, she deadpanned. For the next time I threaten to replace your coffee with decaf. Yes, for the wedding. He set his glass down carefully. You're sure? I want it to be simple, she said. Not flashy. Just the people who matter. Good food.
Dancing.
And maybe a dog or 2. I can give you that, he said. You already have. They married in late September. The ceremony took place behind the rail yard, beneath the same archway they'd built together. The mural wall was painted fresh with wildflowers and sunlight. Penny officiated, wearing a bright orange dress and crying through half her speech. Mrs. Castillo brought her famous flan, and someone's cousin played acoustic guitar until the sun went down. Madeline wore a white dress she'd found at a vintage shop, simple and soft. Thayer wore a navy suit and no tie, just the way she liked him best. They said their vows with hands clasped, eyes locked, and the kind of certainty that made the entire crowd go quiet. "I didn't know what home was until you walked into my life," Thayer said, his voice steady. "Now I wake up every day knowing I've already found everything I was ever looking for." Madeline's voice didn't waver. "You never tried to change me. You just made space for me to be exactly who I am. And that's the kind of love I never thought I deserve, but now I can't imagine living without." They kissed as the crowd cheered. Not a dramatic, sweeping kiss. Just a quiet promise pressed between two people who had already chosen each other 100 times before. That night, they danced barefoot in the courtyard under strings of lights.
No tuxedos.
No grand ballroom. Just laughter, music, and a life that felt like it had been earned, not gifted. After the guests left, they walked home side by side, shoes in hand. No driver.
No fanfare.
Just them. At the front door, Thayer paused. "You happy?" he asked. She turned to him, eyes bright. "I'm whole." He unlocked the door, and they stepped inside their apartment, now filled with photos, books, a dog bed for the rescue mutt they'd adopted, and the kind of peace that doesn't come from perfection, but from presence. They curled up on their worn couch, limbs tangled, the wedding bouquet resting on the kitchen counter beside their takeout boxes. Thayer looked over, half asleep. "You really did repaint the bathroom while I was gone." "Told you I would." He kissed her shoulder. "I'll never catch up with you." "You don't have to," she whispered. "You're already here." And that was all either of them needed. They didn't chase the next big thing. They built something better. Together. Forever.